There I am, 18 years old, standing in my hometown synagogue. I'm back from Israel, where I've spent the last 2 years studying in yeshiva, and I am very, very desperate that everyone in the room should know just how awesome and how devout and how spiritual I really am. To a casual onlooker, I'd seem like a young man in the throes of fervent prayer, gesticulating with impressive intensity. There's a Yiddish word for that. It's called shuckling. From the inside, if you got a glimpse into that adolescent head of mine, there was a rambling and frankly kind of pathetic dialogue going on. How's my shuckling? Is my shuckling good? Is it too much? Is it too little? We need the right amount of shuckle here, folks. How long have I had my eyes closed here? It's been like what, 5 minutes? Is everyone impressed? I mean, this is impressive, right? Look at the rabbi. He's been done for like 5 minutes. Maybe he needs to go back to yeshiva. Now, thinking back on this episode of my younger self makes me cringe for a few reasons. One has to do with the spotlight effect, which is the psychological phenomenon by which people tend to believe they are being noticed more than they really are. The tendency to forget that although one is the center of one's own world, one is not the center of everyone else's. Fascinating topic, but that's another video. What makes this episode even more cringe for me now is the realization that I've come to that it represents one of the most common and most subversive pitfalls in the religious journey. A pitfall that I think is a crucial part of what the second of the 10 Commandments is attempting to communicate. You shall not have other gods in my presence. You shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness which is in the heavens above, which is on the earth below, or which is in the water beneath the earth. The second commandment is about not having any other gods besides capital G God, which in the Torah takes the form of idolatry. In Hebrew, avodah zarah. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the hardest commandments to relate to off the bat. It's almost cliche to point out how there's not a ton of biblical, run-of-the-mill, tried-and-true idol worship happening these days. And in fact, the Talmud famously points out that the appetite for traditional idol worship, which was apparently very much a thing back in the day, it's not really a thing anymore. But it is one of the big 10 commandments, and by now, I hope you agree, that means there's a foundational principle here that's relevant and useful for that good and meaningful life we all seek. So it's not surprising that for hundreds of years, various thinkers have found ways to relate the concept of idol worship to our everyday lived experience. I want to share one of them with you. There's an exchange that appears in the Midrash that points to what I think is a particularly profound application. The two participants in the exchange are Abraham and Nimrod. Abraham was famously not very into idols, and he'd been going around town dissuading folks from bowing to them, which got him in hot water with a lot of folks, including his own father, who snitched on him to the king, Nimrod, who was very into idols. So Nimrod says to Abraham, let's worship fire. And Abraham says back, instead, let's worship water, which quenches the fire. And Nimrod says, okay, fine, let's worship water. And Abraham says back again, not so fast. Let's worship the clouds from which water comes. And Nimrod agrees. Okay, let's worship the clouds. But Abraham keeps going. Let's worship the wind which blows away the clouds. You got it, Nimrod says. Let's worship the wind. And then Abraham says, well, then let's worship human beings which can stand up to the wind. And it's here, at this point, where Nimrod loses his cool with Abraham. You're just spewing words, says Nimrod in the Midrash. We're going to worship the fire, and I'm going to throw you into it, and the God who you love can come and save you. Pleasant individual, this Nimrod. Of course, in the Midrash's telling, Abraham emerges from the fire unscathed, etc., but that's actually not what caught my eye here. Instead, I'm fascinated by the fact that it's this last suggestion of Abraham that they worship human beings that set Nimrod off. You can almost feel the defensiveness coming off the page of the Midrash. Abraham has hit a nerve. He's gotten very close to the truth of what is animating Nimrod's idol worship in the first place. In other words, Nimrod's worship of idols, when you strip away all the noise, is really a worship of the self. Because if what you serve is not motivated by truth, it's de facto motivated by something else, and that something else is often self-interest. Besides the Babylonian Talmud, there's also a Jerusalem Talmud. It was completed about 150 years before the Babylonian, and in it, Rabbi Yonai interprets the verse, "There shall not be a foreign god in you," plainly. When you worship yourself, you're following the false god in you, literally. That's got to be the idol worship of our times. The self, the I, the me. Now for me, where this gets really interesting is when you understand that it's possible to serve yourself when you think you're serving God. Like when, while praying to God, you shuckle so hard because you want more than anything that others should admire and praise and worship you. It's missing the point, big time. You see, Judaism prohibits all forms of idolatry, even if those idols are used to worship the one God of Judaism. The most famous example of all time, perhaps, is the golden calf. You know the story. Moses goes up the mountain, he's taking his time, the Jewish people get restless, they pressure Aaron into making a calf. And what did they say about the calf? They say, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." On the surface, it was the same God that they were serving, except God had told them not to make any image of him, ever, because it reduces God into something of this world. And here's the point, when you do that, it makes God into something you can control, or at least something you can attempt to control. And then we're back to square one. You're serving yourself, not God. Now, in any healthy relationship, you can and should ask for things, but the very subtext of the relationship cannot be one in which God is being used by us. We serve God. God does not serve us. That's where the Jewish people went wrong. They instrumentalized God to serve their own needs, as opposed to serving and worshiping something greater than themselves. And that's so easy for all of us to do. It's amazing the ways in which ego creeps into everything that we do. And it's even more amazing the way that we can utterly convince ourselves that it's not about us when it really is. Recently, a friend told me about a family he knew in which two brothers got into a massive fight. So much so that one of the brothers was getting married and the other brother was refusing to come to the wedding. And my friend was just beside himself that this family was tearing itself apart about this, and he wanted to do something. So he got into action. He started pestering the brother who wouldn't come, calling him, telling him how important this was for his parents, yada yada. And then a few days later, he got the call from the mother of these boys. And she said to him, "I know what you're trying to do here, and I get it. But I've got to tell you, you're making it worse. You've got to let these things take their course." And my friend said to me that he realized she was right. Certainly his heart had started in the right place, but at this point, it was more about him than about them. He wanted to be the knight in shining armor. He wanted to be the hero that saved the day. Ever heard someone say, "I'm gonna make so much money so I can give charity"? Or, "I wanna change the world and the fame that comes from it, that's only a byproduct." Ego. It's so sneaky. It creeps into our work, our relationships, and most of the time it messes things up. Rabbi Moshe Shapiro said it like this: "Greatness doesn't mean that you have to do great things. It means that you care that great things are done." It's such a subtle but important distinction. And so it makes good sense every now and then to really stop ourselves and ask, why am I doing what I'm doing? And when this tendency creeps into the spiritual experience, it's even more dangerous, because spirituality, at the end of the day, is a refuge from the ego, a chance to show and to feel that it's not all about me. It's sublimating the self to something bigger, something higher, recognizing that ultimately that's where our fulfillment lies. Rabbi Shlomo Walby, a 20th century rabbi born in Berlin, points out that the Hebrew word for idol is alil, which comes from al-el, which means nothing above. To say no to idol worship, as we are commanded in this second commandment, is about more than not prostrating yourself before a figure of wood or of stone. It's about not putting anything above or before God, including yourself, your own motives and biases. It opens us up to a whole universe of connection and fulfillment and even transcendence, if only we are able to get out of our own way. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear, where do you see ego creep in to relationships, spirituality? I'd love to hear what you have to say, what you have to share. We're building a community here and we want to keep it going. And yeah, subscribe to our channel. We have more videos coming your way, and we'll see you soon.